I missed it consistently. Right? Sometimes I read the question, sometimes I made a very silly calculation mistake, right? Very, very simple mistakes. After the exam, when I looked into it, uh, I was like, okay, I'll, it's not a problem. I won't make it next time. But I kept on doing it, kept on making the same mistake, and kept on giving kept on solving problems, right? So that's the mistake that I did. How I changed it in the next time was I actually made a tracker in Excel, right? So I went back to each and every error that I made, and all these 1,000 questions. I started, listing them down, putting them into categories. And at the end, I could see three very distinctive categories. Before reading any question, before starting the exam, I write this, fight for the purpose, and that is how I used to start my exam, right? And it kept me reminding that okay, purpose is what it's not. The exams are not very similar to how as an Indian student we have been trained on. CAT, they test on, they'll give you very hard question, you solve it, right? JEE, we all know, they'll give you the toughest questions that one have ever seen, and you have to solve it. But GMAT is not that. GMAT is strategy. It's not, you know, they're not looking for the best IQ. They are looking for the, I believe, that's the one who could strategize things. So, the thing about DI is, DI is very, you can expect things, right? In English, you don't know what, in verbal critical reasoning, you don't know what kind of question is going to come. But DI is very predictable, I believe, right?
Yeah.
There was time when I had very less time. I had no time to read the question. I knew, okay, one should not do this. But the number of questions I had solved, the structure that is there in eGMAT, okay, the table question will have these kind of questions. This will be,
The architecture of the course.
exactly. There are 4-5 main categories, and the question, those itself. Maybe they'll change the number, few things. So I think among all the three sections, DI is the most predictable one.
Welcome to this debriefing session, and congratulations on scoring a 715. You said Q90, V83, and DI83. So perfect on quant, and then 86 percentile on verbal and 96 percentile on data insights.
Correct.
And this is after you got a 590 in your first attempt on the classical GMAT. So
Yes.
this was kind of like a 55th percentile or so. So now you are at a 99th percentile. So it's a really good improvement. So we're going to start one by one. We're going to start with, I think, the area where you have probably the biggest improvement, which is quant. And so tell me, what issues did you have in quant? Because as an Indian, you knew the quant concepts piece, as you said. So what issues did you have? How did you solve those issues? And someone like you, what approach would you have? Tell them.
Definitely. Thank you for this warm welcome, Rajat. So to answer this question on quant, so I'll tell you the answer in what I did in my first attempt, what mistakes I did, and then things that I improved in my second attempt. How did I strategize it, right? So in my first attempt, I believe there was no, as an Indian, as like, full-time professional student in India, right? We see that, I took the maths of eGMAT like how we take JEE's paper, right? Like I was like, I'll keep on solving questions, all the questions that is available with me, thousands of questions, and I should be good with it, right? But the the point that I was lacking was not practice of the knowledge, right? The thing that I was lacking was the strategy. The I was not focusing on the mistakes that I was making. I just went on to solve questions, nothing else. I did not think much. I did not strategize anything, right? And I kept on making the same mistake, So it did
What
not.
kind of mistakes?
To be so silly mistakes, I'll say, right? Very, very silly mistakes. Like I'll calculate the value of p, I'll see that answer is there in the option, I'll move ahead, but the question asked for the value of p square, right? I'll maybe miss a part of the question where it says x is greater than 0, but I got an answer x is equal to -3. I'll
So you
take.
miss constraints.
Exactly. I missed very small parts of it, right? And I missed it consistently. Right? Sometimes I read the question, sometimes I made a very silly calculation mistake, right? Very, very simple mistakes. After the exam, when I looked into it, I was like, uh, I was like, okay, I'll, it's not a problem. I won't make it next time. But I kept on doing it, kept on making the same mistake and kept on giving
Mm.
kept on solving problems, right? So that's the mistake that I did. How I changed it in the next time was I actually made a tracker in Excel, right? I categorized my mistakes into, I didn't even know how many categories will it be.
Mm.
So, I used to study through this eGMAT. I used to give eGMAT, Scholaranium, all the tests that I had. So I went back to each and every error that I made, and
Mm.
all these 1,000 questions. I started, listing them down, putting them into categories.
Mm.
And at the end, I could see three very distinctive categories. One was I
Mm.
read the question incorrect. Second, I solved for something else, right? And third was making calculation mistake. There was a fourth one as well, which I didn't have that concept, that I made very, very few mistakes in that, right?
So, which
Uh,
you didn't know the concept basically.
exactly,
Yeah.
yes, I could not solve that question.
So,
So
so let's
they were
repeat
very
this.
few.
First is you read the question incorrectly, which means you missed a
Correct,
constraint or something else. The second is you solved for the wrong thing.
correct.
You really said. Okay. Um, and the third was a calculation mistake, which is you knew what you needed to solve for, you had all the constraints, but while solving, you missed a sign here or there, and you
Yes,
carried the math forward and chose an answer choice where you missed a sign or missed a greater than, less than, or square or something. Okay.
exactly,
Fourth one
exactly.
was where, and these three were what, 95% of all the reasons why you would make a mistake.
Correct.
And the fourth one
90%.
was where you probably didn't know the concept that the question was asking. So that's the only place where you learn something new that was not in your in your skill set already.
Yes, exactly. I think you summarized it very well. Exactly. This is this is what I found out, and then now I knew where I have to work. It's
Mhm.
not the number of questions or my concepts that I am to improve a lot. It's more about my accuracy. I'll have to be more,
Mhm.
very thorough with the question itself. More than I answer, I had to spend more time in the question. So
Mhm.
that was my, I kept my sole goal for the next few weeks. I saw nothing. I saw no time, no pressure. I just wanted to correct each and every question that I knew, right? And I think that like drastically helped me,
So
right?
then you, with this new approach, you said you practice questions on Scholaranium. You
Hmm.
also track the metrics on Scholaranium you mentioned earlier. So how did that work?
uh it kept on improving, right? Started, I used to make approx, if I take a sectional quiz, out of 15 question I will make four mistakes, right? But then it
Earlier.
earlier, right? But and constantly the same issues,
Mhm.
minor errors. But now I used to maybe one error out of two marks, right? Something like that. So that is how it improved.
And so you would track your metrics so within number properties, you'd look at primes, divisibility remainders, LCM, GCD, you'd look at how they're trending up over there for the last six questions, last versus.
10 question,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes, 10 question,
Perfect.
30 question. And for me, the, you know, topics were not the main concerns, right? For me, it was, I could make the same, calculation method. It could be in any of the topic. So for me, those skills were not the issue at all. It was more of an, uh, silly mistakes that I
It was
used to
you
do.
had to avoid those three categories basically.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
so now we've talked about quant, we've talked about how we've used the course, and so the difficulty of questions that you found, did
Hmm.
they, the skills that you learned through practicing, how did they translate into how your overall quant experience on the exam?
Yes, so, um, so that is how I had made, as I told you, the strategy that I had, right?
Mhm.
So I just had to. Exam was not a, some kind of special day for me. It was just like, how I'm giving my mocks, how I'm solving question on Scholonium, how I'm
Mhm.
solving, giving a mock in eGMAT, official GMAT. Wherever I'm giving it, it was just a next day for me in the exam, right?
Nothing
I
special.
nothing special. I tried to be as calm as possible because, those silly mistakes comes more when you get under pressure, right? And one more change I did was I practiced a lot of mocks this time. Right, last time I did not give very very few marks, maybe one or two. Right, but this time I gave all the five marks that were there in eGMAT. I gave all the six marks which were there in the official GMAT. So I
Mhm.
was very, I had that habit of sitting 2 3 hours giving a mock. So everything. So exam, I just took it as a another day for me,
Okay.
and I think I was very very calm that day, and I think that is why I did not. take that time pressure as well.
So in terms of quant, did you have time left on the test?
I think couple of minutes.
Couple of
I
yeah.
I went back. I corrected one question as well. I had
Okay.
marked it, so I guess that made it a full mark. So
Got
that was
it. All
important.
right. And so what is the section order on the test?
First was quants.
Mhm.
Um, then I think no, I started with verbal, DI, and then quant.
Verbal DI and quant. So quant was the last. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So now we talked about quant. Let's talk about verbal here. Verbal CR, you were naturally good.
Mm-hmm.
RC was a problem for you. And you mentioned that RC, you were good sometimes, you were really bad sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
tell me what was your diagnosis and then how did you actually fix RC?
Correct. So on the just to quickly cover the CR side as well. CR side, I was good, just like maths.
Mm.
But there also I used to make the same mistakes, right? I did not used to read the question, and I think it's not me. I think a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people, and they make the same mistake. And I think the GMAT questions are made that way, right?
Yeah.
That you are bound to overlook few of it, right? So it's not. So that happened with me in CR as well, and the same tracker I made for how I made it for quant, and it helped me on the RC. My skill was the problem here,
Mm.
right? As a lot of proud Indian student, my English was not very very strong. So I had this problem where in one of the like passage I'll score 4 out of 4. It was a difficult passage. I scored 4 out of 4, and the next question, even it's an easy one, I'll make 3 mistakes out of 4. So it was not consistent.
Mm.
I didn't have a consistent approach. I just read through everything.
Mm.
I was just
So your approach was read the passage in a single go, then go attack questions.
yes,
Okay.
yes. I didn't have a single approach. Sometimes, when the time was less, I didn't have a single approach that I was following. Sometimes I read, when the passage felt easy, I read everything, went to the question. Sometimes, the first paragraph I was not doing very well, so I went to the questions first, then came back to this. So I didn't have a particular strategy there, and I think that is where I was making mistake. And just to highlight this, that even in the first, the
Attempt.
attempt that I gave, the amount of hours that I put in was not any less, right? I kept on doing things, but then I realized, okay, the thing that I focus is on strategy, right? So I had to rethink everything for my RC, right? I went, I started seeing videos. I started looking for people who had the same issues, exactly these interviews. I started looking for,
So one such debrief is what you watched on our YouTube channel, okay?
exactly. And I think a lot of people had this problem, and everyone went for a different approach. But the common thing that I found was everyone had an approach, right? I didn't had an approach. So
Mm.
that was the common thing between all of them, that you have to stick to a particular approach that you follow for RC,
Mm.
and you have to keep doing it for all the questions, right? And that is how, whether you write the summary or you memorize, you don't, sometimes people, when they go and write in between reading an RC, they'll lose everything, right? Some people just keep in their head. So whatever there has to be a strategy. So I went back in, you know started looking for the strategy that best suits me, and it was what came out was, I'll read a paragraph, I'll write a summary about it, not a summary. I'll write why the author wrote this paragraph. That's it.
What is the
In
purpose of this paragraph?
exactly what yes, exactly. So this is a very interesting thing. um I before solving any paper, the first line that I wrote in my the blank sheet of that we get in the paper, I always write, start with fight for the purpose, right?
Fight
And
for the purpose, okay.
right before reading any question, before starting the exam, I write this,
Mm.
fight for the purpose. And that is how I used to start my exam, right? And it kept me reminding that, okay, purpose is what it's not, the exams are not very similar to how, as an Indian student, we have been trained on cat. They test on, they'll give you very hard question, you solve it, right? J, we all know, they'll give you the toughest questions that one have ever seen, and you have to solve it. But GMAT is not that. GMAT is strategy. It's not, you know, they're not looking for the best IQ. They are looking for the, I believe, you know, that's the one who could
It is,
strategize thing.
it's
That's the
yeah,
best
it's
thing.
strategize, honestly speaking. It's not something
Yes.
where you can really do a ton of practice and you're going to see something which is very, very similar. So
Yes.
for JEE, you can solve Irodov and there is a very high chance that whatever physics questions you would get,
Exactly.
will be a close application of that.
Yes.
GMAT's a lot of originality. If you have the core skills to really figure things out, and then they'll you'd be able to answer those questions. But honestly, if you think about it, a lot of JEE mains, well, in my time there was just one JEE exam. It was very just the
Mhm.
mains. It's very similar to how if you have a fundamental approach to solving questions, whether it's something which is related to torque or rotational motion or something that's related to magnetism. If you know how to calculate the moment of inertia, you know how to do it.
Correct.
If you know how to calculate the magnetic field around, you know how to do it. So that's something which is there.
Correct.
So
Correct. So exactly. And in GMAT, how I saw GMAT was it's a business problem, and the business is me, right? The problems I have, those problems, I took it as a business problems. How I used to solve projects in my work. I did that, right? I wrote the problem statement that I had with myself, and I went into solving that. So that is how I think
so
GMAT happened.
DI, what were the big issues? Because 96% on DI is also not easy.
Yes. So DI, I think, to be very honest, I think all the credits I'll give it to eGMAT. So, the thing about DI is, DI is very, uh, you can expect things, right? In English, you don't know what, in verbal critical reasoning, you don't know what kind of question is going to come. But DI is very predictable, I believe, right?
Okay.
There was time when I had very less time. I had no time to read the question. I knew, okay, one should not do this.
Mm.
But the number of questions I had solved, the structure that is there in eGMAT, okay, the table question will have these kind of questions. This
Mm.
will be,
The
the
architecture of the course.
exactly. There are 4, 5 main categories, and the questions those itself. Maybe they'll change the number few in. So I think among all the three sections, DI is the most predictable one. You
Mm.
know, that is the like, very traditional Indian. I took it that way. I just you only have to time the. I think the questions that are there in eGMAT in the course itself, there are many questions, and I think solving just those helped me. I had to go nowhere. I think that was the only thing that I solved. Initially,
Mm.
I used to take 4 minutes to solve a question.
Mm.
By the time I finished the course, all this colonium, I was able to solve it in the, whatever time limit, 1 minute, 2 minutes. I was able to do that. So it just went very smooth, and I think I don't know in this course structure, for particularly DI is very smooth. I think I
It's
did not.
also the newest course you built. I mean, we spent close to 25,000 hours building that,
Okay,
the enhancing the platform. It's also something that was built last year. So the
okay.
core structure is the freshest over there,
Okay,
in
yes,
that
I
case. So,
think,
so
and
yeah.
that is very good. In maths and CR, I did not particularly go and look for the tutorial videos because
Mm.
I already had the concept, so I'm not sure how is that. But DI, I think it's very beautiful. I think I'll say that the questions that are there, the structure, everything. I think it's very beautiful, and I enjoyed studying from there. So it was very nice.
So
DI
let me
was
just
very
tell you,
smooth.
all the courses are built by Pile.
Mhm.
And so both Quant and CR are also built by Pile. DI is also built by Pile as well. So Pile is the only course creator at eGMAT. A question creator, of course, there are lots of us who create questions.
Mhm.
And so, but 715, congratulations. So I would love to, if you have your error logs, I'd love to really, if you can share your error logs, I'd love to see those.
Yes, these are not, I'll say, very professionally that I have made. These are very raw. Just give me a minute. I'll, mm, actually, I don't have it in my. This is not the. This is my work laptop actually, so I don't have
Okay.
it in this. But I can give you a snapshot. I had a. This is how I started making it. Right. So this was an error tracker for DI. So in the DI as well, I had the same issues. So this is how I started. Silly calculation mistake, difficulty are tricky to interpret, and again missed a part of the questions. So this is how categorized every mistake I made. I added one here like this. I kept on going, right? And the final tracker that I have, there I can see that these are this much. This is this length, and silly mistakes that
So
I
this
make.
wasn't done by question number. This was just a count of the category of mistakes here.
Yes, because I realized initially I tried doing that, but I realized the mistakes I was making, it was not because of the concepts. It was generic mistakes that I made, and I made it for any topic that was there.
Got it.
So this is how it went. But yes, I think this is the main. I think uh, strategizing thing is the main part of it. First identifying where do I need to fill the gap.
Mm.
Filling the gap, I think that is the easier part. I'll
Got it.
say
And you see, you're now applying to ISB, or you've already applied to ISB. You're now prepping for the interview,
yes.
and so well, good luck for that. I would say. Uh,
Thank you, Rajat.
that's really, really good. I think you have a great score. Very, very balanced score. So you this when the lowest percentile that you have is 86th. So that's really good. And I'm very, very sure you have a fairly strong chance there.